All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It took me a moment. I realized right before I was about to start talking that I hadn't turned the mic on, so we're getting better at this whole thing. Um, good morning. I was thinking that, and let me do one other thing really quick. I want to turn off my taskbar from that window. There we go. All right, there we go. So I really liked how yesterday was kind of broken up. Rather than just doing a straight item grind, we basically ended up talking about scripting for an hour, and then we did items at the end. And we still have a bunch of items to go through, but I did like the fact that it wasn't just here's a 2 hour grind through items and then saving everything for the end. So I was thinking about doing the same thing today, and there were kind of two ways we can go. It looks like, and I asked the question in chat for those of you who've seen it already, but we do have upgradable items like stuff that goes through Cespinar or Cromwell to be upgraded. We do have two items on the list that we could go through, or we can do a little bit with arrays, because one of the things that I've not been doing everything as we've been making items, one thing we've not been doing has been setting prices. So that gives us, and that's deliberate, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But it gives us a chance to do some array work and explain how arrays work, and also maybe a little bit with includes and some other little TP2 tricks. But first, I want to start off with this occurred to me after we ended the stream yesterday, but we did this bit right here, right? We started off the stream with adding some scripting to Zalanora, and she's now using Akabar's Battle Blade to give herself Blade Barrier. But it occurred to me that she's just popping up Blade Barrier, but she's a mage, and this is never explained to the player. So I wanted to add one little line here that basically gives the player feedback that she's using an item. So I'm going to make one little quick change to the script. Let's see, I'm in the wrong directory. Let's go to tweaks, BG2EE. So really quick, let's take a look at our script. It's mage 18Z. And you can see elsewhere, like, she gives feedback to like how things are popping. So I'm just going to do the same thing. We're going to grab a display string, and we're just going to add a little bit of feedback to the script that says she is using this item. And we're going to need a new string for that. So we're going to have, let me grab the item name first, because that'll be easier. And we're just going to add a little simple at 1020. And just uses Akabar's Battle Blade. And we're going to go back, and we're just going to add at 1020. And we're basically inserting this into the script, and then it's getting compiled. So Waidu is smart enough to know that at 1020 is a string reference. So it'll pull that from the tray file. So before she pops the Blade Barrier, in the battle text log, it will display uses Akabar's Battle Blade, which for the player at the time won't make sense because they don't know what this is. But when they loot her afterwards, they'll see that this is the item, and that's what she did. So that was just something I thought about yesterday, especially because this is a divine spell being used by a mage. It looks a little goofy. So that was one thing I wanted to do. All right, so it looks like the preference is to talk a little bit about arrays and some TP2 coding. So as we've been going along making these items, one thing that we have not been doing is, let me install it really quick. I'll just show you. Let's just do a yes to install everything. All right. And then refresh the tree. So we have all these items, but one thing that we have not done is set prices for them. They're all using whatever the price of whatever item we've copied them from, which means they're probably not far off from what we want to price them at. But for something like Lunar Shards, which is based off of normal throwing daggers, this price is obviously very, very wrong for a magical item. So one of the things we did, one of the mods that I maintain is Wes Weimer's underrepresented items. And Wes had a whole thing in the README about, I'm not sure about the prices and these are reasonable, because underrepresented items in particular is generally a big pile of +5 items that he brought in from Icewind Dale 2. So not only is it a different rule set, but it's some really high-end items. And so he was unsure about pricing. So what I did in that mod was I basically outsourced the prices to a separate file and made it very, very editable by players if they didn't like the prices that Wes had set. So I was thinking we could do the same kind of thing here, and it'll be a nice little introduction to how do arrays work, like includes mod organization, that sort of thing. And it'll also be a nice way to show how we can make things easier for players to make changes to the stuff you may not agree with. Oh, good morning, Chaco. Chaco just walked in front of the camera. I think you guys just got her tail though. So what we're going to do is we're going to build an array of these items. We're going to set prices, and then we're going to implement it in the TP2 via an include to make it very, very easy for players to modify this. So first, we're just going to do it in the TP2 directly. So we're gonna make an array, and then we're going to do stuff with it. So I'm going to do this at the very end. We're going to do a new section just called like pricing. So we're going to action, define associative array. This is going to be G3C prices. This is just the name of the array. It can really be anything you want, and then begin. Now an array is basically it's a key pair. So basically you're going to have things like, what's our first item? Akabar's Battle Blade. So you're going to put, there's an item on the left, and then an arrow basically pointing to, whatever we want to price it at. So for right now, I'm just going to set it to what the prices currently are. So for Akabar's Battle Blade, it's 7,000. All right. And you can have as many of these as you want, which is why we're doing an array. So next, we got the Caster's Guide to Self-Defense. And this is currently set to 5,000. And like I said, for right now, setting prices for items is by itself a very vague and woolly affair. So the whole reason of doing this is so that we can kind of tweak these prices easily later. Instead of having to keep changing these in near infinity, we can do it here as just editing some text, which is the benefit of doing this via TP2. So let's really quickly, let's grab the other items and do it the same way. All right, we got Slippery Court, which is 3C Court, and that's currently priced at 1, which is definitely wrong. And just because I'm anal retentive, we'll do that. Next up is the CSM, which is priced at 5,000. Next up is Grays, which is priced at 2. Yeah, obviously that needs to change too. Lunar Shards currently priced at 1. Never Alone, which is priced at 300. And these don't need to line up. This is just me being very, very anal retentive. We got the Power of Real Change at 5,000. And then I think Tinkerer's Spectacles. So these are priced at 0 because these were copied from one of Jan's special items. So sometimes the NPC items are priced at 0 so that you can't sell them. And then the Vine Shield, which is 1,000. All right, and then let's just go, and then we end the array. All right, so we now have an array called G3C prices. Now you can use it, and so the other thing too is keep in mind all the keys here on the left need to be unique, right? The fact that we have multiple things that are 5,000 is fine, but like if we were to put in, another entry for G3 CAC and put it to 2,000, it's basically when it sees this, it says, oh, I already have this entry. I'm just going to update the value. So you don't end up with, so whichever one of these is last between these two is the one that takes effect. So if you have an entry in array, you can come back and update it later. It's not, you're not going to end up with two entries for something. And that's important because a lot of times, if you can imagine if somebody did this as inverse, if somebody did, let me first duplicate, if you instead did price to the item, well, that's a problem because the stuff on the left, the keys need to be unique. So if you had multiple items named at 5,000, the last one is the only item that would get registered in here. So always need to think that the stuff on the left needs to be unique, because that's when I was still learning how to do arrays, that bit me a couple of times. So keep in mind, the left column, the array keys have to be unique. Otherwise, you're just updating an existing entry. All right. So what does an array get us? So we can go through and we can process the entries in an array and just basically do like an operation for each of them. So we're going to go action, I think it's action PHP each. Hold on, let me consult the doc since it's, I'm pretty sure it's PHP each. Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, so section PHP each, and we're talking about this array as, and here we insert two variables that we're going to use inside this action. So because our array is basically items on the left and prices on the right, we're going to call these variables item to price. Oops, to price begin. And now basically whatever is specified between this begin and end is going to be done for every entry in this array. So it will do this, whatever is in here, you know, whatever is in here will be done for every single entry that is in this array. So for each one of these, this is at the end of the mod. So all of these items have already been added to the game. So we're going to, for each one, we're going to copy existing. And remember, we've set the keys to item. So we're going to put in the variable for item, item, and we're going to copy it to the override. And then we're going to come to, let's see, the price field is, there it is. It's a 4-byte field at offset 34. So we need a write long, because that's the 4-byte write at 34. And we're going to put in the price. And then a but only for good measure. Oh, I have an extra end here. I don't know why. And so essentially what it's going to do is it's going to hit this and say, all right, set G3 CAC as the item. Set 7,000 as the price. So then we're going to copy G3 CAC.item, and we're going to set 7,000 as its price. And then a but only if it changes, just in case. And then it's going to do this for every one of these entries. So that is at its simplest how to use arrays, right? You basically set up, and you basically set up like a key to its value. And then you use something like action PHP each to process it with Insulate. And these arrays could be anything. And the other thing is they don't necessarily have to be like this as an action. You can also use these within a patch. So if you want to set up like an array of like opcodes that you want to be immune to, right? You can use an array and process through, you know, a section of like 101 opcodes as a patch action with just PHP each, right? The action means that this is a top level action, not a patch, but you can do this within, you know, there's no reason why you can't do a PHP each within a patch and then process another array within, a copy or some other function. So this is arrays at its most simplest, right? We set up a simple array, we iterate through the array, and we do something with it. Now, we're going to try to make this user-friendly. So we're going to instead put this in a separate file so that if a player wants to come in here and edit the prices themselves, they don't have to, look at all this other stuff and be like, what in the heck is this? So we're going to make this as easy as possible. So we're going to come back to our mod. We're going to add a library. And we're going to create a new file that can be included. And we're going to call this prices.tpa. I did process again. Prices.tpa. Now, by convention, modders generally call these files TPA or TPH. This is just by convention. You can literally name them anything. These could even just be text files. In fact, for players, it might actually be easier to use text because then their text editor will open it by default. But by tradition, you generally call these TPA or TPH files. But again, feel free to use whatever you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this code out of here and put it in prices. And then we're going to instead use a command called include and basically load that file. And so using include, basically this essentially inserts this code and executes it right in place. Now, the reason why you do something like an include is because if you have something, not so much for this because this is a one component mod, but if you look in something like tweaks where there are functions or bits of code that I need to use in different components, include is a great way to not have to have the same block of code in like 14 different places in the mod. And the reason why, and the obvious answer of why you take that approach is maintainability. If I discover there's a flaw or a bug, or I want to improve that code, I only have to do it in one place and not 14. So from a maintenance standpoint, it's 1,000 times easier to use includes for code you're going to use in multiple places. What we're doing here is the other use case. If you want to make code easier to find because you're expecting players or, other modders to want to get in and mess with this code. One other thing that you might do this for is if you are providing libraries for another mod to do something that will make it compatible with your mod. That's a little bit more of an edge case, but it does happen. Like, for example, item upgrade, which is another one of Wes's mods that I maintain, and Sword Coast Stratagems. I built a little compatibility library because David has a component that basically like eliminates, I think, contingency scrolls from the game, and one of the item upgrades from that mod requires contingency scrolls. So it's basically a library that if that component from Sword Coast Stratagems runs, it can basically include that bit from item upgrade to solve the compatibility problems. So that's another thing you can do with it. There is also another command called reinclude. And the only difference between include and reinclude is if I have include here and then I come back later and I include it again for whatever reason. If prices has changed, if this file has changed in the meantime, it doesn't matter because Waidu has gone, oh, I've already got this file. And it doesn't reload this fresh. If I use reinclude, that basically forces it to reload this file in case this file has changed. The number of times that you're actually going to need reinclude instead of include is 0, but just be aware that if you include something multiple times, it will always come back to where you first loaded it in the state of the file then, unless you use reinclude. That's a little bit of an edge case, but it's just something to be aware of. So that's basically it. The other thing that we're going to do to make this user-friendly is we're going to include some comments so that any player who hits this can easily see what these items are. Let's see, Caster's Guide to Self-Defense. Oh. All right, so we're just going to copy this over. The Power of Real Change. Vine Shield. Oh, I don't have credit for the Vine Shield or Slippery Court. Yeah. We'll worry about that later. Slippery Court, if I remember right, is Lynx. Slippery Court. Graze. Lunar Shards. So now we can go through, and also while we're doing this, we can very easily decide what are some good prices for these items. And again, right, there's no clear like this is right. There's, no clear like this is a right price or a wrong price, because even within like the player handbook and the Dungeon Master Guide, there are guidelines, but there's no hard and fast like this item is worth this much. But some of these we can very see are wrong and do need to be changed. But for the other ones, we can kind of look and see. So Akambar's Battle Blade is based on the Ring of Protection +2. So basically, and that item costs 7,000, which is what this is based on. So essentially, we're trading +2 saves for a 1 time a day Blade Barrier. I was blanked on the name. So you're basically trading +2 saves for Blade Barrier, which for me makes this a weaker item than a straight up +2 Ring of Protection. Because for me, the value of a Ring of Protection is primarily in the saves. So we can take a look at like other rings and see what they're valued at. Excuse me. So we can look, for example, like the Ring of Princes, a +1 protection ring is 1,500, +2 is 7,000. Something like the free action ring is 5,500. The reaching ring, which is extra 5th, 6th, and 7th level spells, 7,000. So I'm looking at, I think it's more valuable than a +1 protection ring. Not as valuable as this. What is Ring of the Ram? Ring of the Ram is like 4,500. This feels like a decent price for it. Maybe a little bit more than this, just because it also has the armor class bonus. So let's price this at 5,000, because I think that's, it's more than, it's not quite a +2 Ring of Protection, but it's still a pretty good item. All right, so Caster's Guide to Self-Defense by Glitter Gear. So this has a couple castings per day. All right, it does haste once per day and mirror image once per day. So it's 2 spells once per day, 2 really good spells once per day, and this is also usable. It's not restricted to just mages, right? So this can let your frontliner buff themselves and protect themselves, right? Imagine your Dwarven Defender up there also with mirror images, right? That greatly enhances their life. And then also, of course, haste is also, a top tier spell for buffing your frontliners. So this is, I don't think 5,000 is a bad price for this. This is based on the Constitution manual that gives you permanently +1 Constitution, which at 5,000, that's a steal, because that's woefully underpriced. But I think 5,000 is reasonable. We can leave it there. Slippery Court, this is the item that gives +1 luck. Luck is huge. It does have that little 3% chance to be -1 luck. But still, luck's a pretty powerful ability, especially for your thief and how it affects all your, all your damage rolls and everything else. Luck's a pretty huge bonus. And then the fact that you also get saving throws and armor class. So let's take a look at what other boots run, right? The Paws of the Cheetah are kind of the boot that everybody wants at 2,300. So 900, 2,500, 900. Yeah, so we're looking, boots are generally the boots of lightning speed. Yeah, why is this? That is way out of line. 5,000, 25,000 for the gargoyle boots. Okay. All right, so I think something like maybe a little bit less than the haste boots is probably reasonable, because I would say they're more valuable than this, and they're definitely more valuable than this. But I still think Paws of the Cheetah are a more desirable item. So let's try 2,000 for the Slippery Court boots. All right, and now accountability and some. Oops, bring this back. Accountability and Summering Matrix. I think this is another one of Glitter Gear's books. Fire. So 2 6th-level spells once per day. And this one, if I remember right, is restricted to. Does have some restrictions. Yeah, you have to be a mage to use this. All right. So this one, the thing is, these spells are higher level, but they're restricted to a mage only items. But I still think, because that's 2 6th-level cells, which are kind of a big deal, and you can you basically have 2 elementals per day. Let's put this up to maybe like 9,000. Okay, yeah. So each store has a price multiplier for the player. Yes. So this is an important factor. When you are setting the price of an item, you should set it relative to other items, because, as Wandering Scholar is correctly pointing out, let me go to a store file really quick. So every store has multipliers. Their buy markup and their sell markup. So basically, their sell markup is essentially they're going to take the base cost of an item and multiply it by 140%, and that is what they're going to sell it to you for. But you're also, because of charisma and reputation, you're going to get a price reduction from that. So this is always usually like 140% is pretty typical for stores. Actually, maybe it might be more like 160. Yeah, like 140 to 150. Some of these are fake stores. Some of these are places that just are inns, and they don't actually sell any items, so the markup kind of doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, store markup is usually 150. Buy markup basically means that they'll only buy an item for 30% of whatever its value is in the item. So yeah, right? If we had a 1,000 gold piece item, they would buy it for 300 gold. And if they had the 1,000 gold piece item in their inventory, they would sell it to you for 1,550 gold. And there's also depreciation. If they already have like 5 items of it, then then they'll offer you even less to buy the item. So that's why, these prices are not going to be what players actually see in a shop, because it's going to be adjusted for the merchant's markup, and then also for your reputation discounts. So that's why when you're setting prices, know that these are not necessarily what you're going to see in store, right? Like for this, in a merchant with 150% markup, it's going to be sold for 13,500. So what I try to do is I look at what other items are priced at, and then kind of slot it in accordingly. And like I said, this is by feel. Some people could look at, something like getting a mirror image or free haste for their fighter is worth, just from a practical standpoint, way more than 5,000 gold. And also, being as we're talking about Baldur's Gate 2, gold is very easy to come by in the end game. So even 5,000 is a little silly, because once you pay that Chapter 2 ransom, you just have gold everywhere. So, but still, it's important to try to slot it in where you think it fits among comparable items. So yes, but like I said, Wandering Scholar is correct. These are not necessarily the prices you'll actually see in game, because these get multiplied and changed by a number of factors when they're bought and sold. All right, so next up we've got Grays, which is, let's get back out of the stores. So Grays is it's the dagger, and so it's a base dagger that gives AC bonuses. So let's look at dagger prices. So it's probably the most comparable would be something like a +1 dagger, because it is magical and it does give you armor class bonuses. Is it as useful as a +1 dagger? I'd say it's comparable, maybe a little bit more. So a +1 dagger is 300. Let's set the price for this at 400. All right, and the lunar shards. So these are the throwing darts. Oh yeah, the lunar shards. So yeah, these are the lycanthrope throwing daggers. Now the problem is we don't have, or actually no, we do have throwing daggers, but they're returning throwing daggers, right? These are one use only. So if you look at like the +2 boomerang dagger, this isn't necessarily the best comparison because the lunar shards do run out, right? This is an infinite use item. You never ever run out of this. And same with, Fire Tooth and all these other items. So the only throwing daggers we have to compare it with are unenchanted. So we could look at what's the price of a dagger 2 versus its throwing dagger, or versus its +1 upgrade, right? It's 150 times the price. So we could look at this and go, all right, it's 1. We're essentially going to kind of what is a +1 dagger, so maybe do it by 150. So that, and keep in mind, it's 150 per throwing dagger. So these would be, for a stack of 7, that would be what, 1,050 for the stack, which seems reasonable because these are, as I recall, these. Yeah, it's just +1 to hit, and then it's +2, but only versus evil. And then it can harm all lycanthropes and can be recovered from the target after being used. So I think let's go for like 200, because then you can buy the whole stack for 1,400, which seems reasonable for 7 daggers. They're not quite infinite use because you will lose them, right? If I miss the attack, the dagger is lost forever. If the dagger is used to is the killing blow on a creature, it also gets lost forever. So I think 200 each for these is not bad. So let's go 200 for these. And I'm open to feedback on all these, right? I mean, by no means are these hard and fast rules. When pricing, do you take into account the possibility of gold being added to the system? It does make sense to consider, but again, your primary focus should just be on making sure your items kind of fit in with the existing economy of the game. Because it's useful to think about it, but you don't know if people are just going to be installing your mod, or if they're going to be installing your mod and 817 of their favorite mega mods to go along with it on an EET game that also has Icewind Dale and Icewind Dale 2, and Planescape Torment and Shoplifting 2. So again, I come back to, so here's a thought experiment. All right. So what if I did know that this mod was going to be used exclusively with a mod where there's just gold everywhere? Would it make sense for, grays to suddenly cost more than, if I were to set the price of grays to 8,000 instead of 400, right? That would make sense in that heavy gold game. But then internally, it means that this kind of amped up +1 kind of dagger is now more expensive than, like the +4 long tooth dagger. So if you're not going to be able to systemically deal with gold inflation within the scope of an item mod, that would be something that you would almost need a standalone mod that was basically like Sim Dingo's, or even just any of the mods that affect XP overall, where it's like, we're going to take all of the XP in the game and we're going to adjust it. You would rely on a mod that's like, all right, this mod makes big economic changes to the game, and it's going to do it systematically. So your goal, at least in terms of an item mod, is you can only control your little corner of the universe. And so your goal should be trying to get your items to fit in. And then if somebody else wants to come along and systematically change, what they think a good base price and all that, or, they're going to like reduce the overall gold in the game by 50%, or they're going to raise item prices by 30% across the board, or just for like spears, because I think spears are undervalued. That needs to be handled in a systemic fashion, and that's going to be well beyond what you're probably doing with just a handful of items, right? If you want to do that, you're probably making a goal whose outright goal is to do that. So it's interesting to think about, but again, right, the primary concern needs to be like, where does this fit in kind of with the power scale of the existing game? And the other thing too is you do have to account for, there are certain items that on their own are not that exciting. Like Belm is not that exciting except for that +1 APR, which because of how the game works becomes like wildly overvalued, right? If you were to look at Belm's price, you'd be like, this thing is way undervalued considering how useful it is in the game. So that is something that you can do, is you can think more along the lines of, you know, if the Caster's Guide to Self-Defense, right, it does haste and mirror image, which are both really useful. But if imagine instead it was, you know, infravision and good berries, right? It's okay to take in real world concerns of like, is this spell actually useful and used by players versus, you know, should I value level 1 spells equally? And the answer is, realistically, level 1 spell, you know, or any level spells are not graded equally. So, you know, if you have an item that, again, like infravision and good berries versus, you know, blind and sleep, even just at like low level stuff, right? Some of those spells are way more useful than the others. All right, so that was where our levers are. All right, let's go to, Never Alone is next. So this is 3 mirror images per day, immunity, fear, and panic. Oh, the description is screwed up. I have this is duplicated. Well, let's fix that first of all. This is for Never Alone. Let's fix that. Yep, there it is. Duplicated that. Well, that's easy to fix. All right, so it's mirror image 3 times per day. Again, a really useful self buff. Immunity to fear and panic is also very, very useful. And it's a headgear. So let's take a look at, like, for example, what does the charm protection helmet go for? Helmet charm protection goes for 800. See, this is a good example, right? The Eyes of Truth gives you infravision, 800 gold. Charm protection, also 800 gold. This is useless, right? Now, you don't get charmed that often, but this is still at least useful. But yet, they're both 800 gold. All right, so the Gift of Peace is 3,500. Helm of Baldur, which is the greatest helmet in the game, is 7,000. Kills him. This might be our most comparable item because it does protect from fear. We don't get critical hit protection, but we do get 3 mirror images. What's the Helm of Brilliance do? This is a random price. Skull of Death. It's got regeneration. All right. I think putting a premium on something like Kiel's helmet, because again, you don't get the actual critical hit protection, but you do get 3 mirror images, which is very, very useful. I think let's go for something like 3,500. I think that's reasonable for this. So we're on Never Alone. So we'll go 3,500. All right, the Power of Real Change. Power of Real Change is polymorph self once per day. Yeah. Polymorph self, it's somewhat useful. It's not all that terribly exciting. Let's go for 2,000 on this. I mean, I like the Power of Real Change just as like a thematic item more, like the Power of Real Change, and it's that you can literally polymorph yourself into something else. I think that's thematically a really neat idea. All right, the Tinkerer's Spectacles. So these are knock once per day and then a bunch of thieving bonuses. Oh yeah, this is the item that confuses you when you put it on. Okay. And it's headgear. So something like this, again, you've got a fairly useful spell once per day. You've got nice thieving bonuses. You got a +2 to hit bonus against spiders, which aren't that common or threatening by the time you get to Baldur's Gate 2. So one thing that might be useful to compare this to are the Mercy Killer Ring and the Ring of Danger Sense. So let's take because those provide thieving bonuses. So let's take a look at what those are at. Ring of Danger Sense is 25 to traps and is 3,000. Lockpicks is 3,000, but it's 25%. So, and this has got all of that. So this on a ring was worth 3,000, just that by itself. And then a fifth of that was another 3,000. So I think something for something like this, I think 5,000 is reasonable. Yeah, no, it is better, but I was trying to think of something that actually provides thieving abilities. So yeah, the fact that you get 2 rings versus only 1 helm slot means that the rings are slightly less valuable. So, I mean, but the thing is, right, you're getting big thieving bonuses and you're getting a knock. So let's go for something like 3,500 for this. And like I said, none of these are set in stone. These are just me. This is one of the places where it's wonderful to get feedback, because there are going to be players that that is an insane price. You're insane. So this is just me spitballing here. And one of the reasons why I like doing this on stream is you can actually see my thought process and you can see all the ways where I'm horribly going wrong with it. So by all means, even within the folks who are on chat today, we're not going to agree, which is one of the reasons why I like doing this disparately. And this will be something that, when the mod is published, we'll definitely want feedback on, because everybody has a slightly different take on pricing and what abilities they think are really valuable and which ones they think are useless. So last up is the Vine Shield. And this is basically, we copy this from a +1 shield with 1,000. And this essentially is a +1 shield, except that it also has the retaliation entangle. So I'm trying to think what else has a retaliation effect. I mean, there's Keldorn's sword, but being an NPC item, I'm not sure if it even has a price on it. Sword of Ivory. Yeah, it's got a price of 10 to discourage you from selling it. So let's take a look at what a +2 small shield goes for. Do we have a +2 small shield? No, we do not. We have a generic medium shield, but no generic +2 shield. All right, well, what is a medium? Oh, there it is. I'm looking right at it. Small shield. So 2,500. So that's kind of our cap, because that entangle, I think, doesn't make it as useful as a +2 shield. But I think somewhere in between 1,000 and 2,500 is reasonable. So let's go with a 1,500 on this. Right? We'll give it a 500 premium for the entangle ability. So now we can run this and see if we've done this correctly. We have. Now we should be able to see those prices in the game. So we just set Vine Shield 1,500. Boom. Everything else has been set to the prices we've set. And in the future, right, if we come back to the Lunar Shards, we're like, that's an insane price for Lunar Shards. All we have to do is just change some text. So this is one way in which, when you get a little more familiar with Waidu, there's going to be, remember like yesterday when I was copying and pasting the confusion ability and I had to keep editing effects one by one in Near Infinity? There are a lot of times where doing, edits in Waidu is way more efficient. And this is one of the reasons why, because editing things in a text editor, as nice as Near Infinity is, there are still times when you can write, 3 lines of code and it will save you, 10, 15 minutes in an editor. And then if you change your mind later, you can change it right back. So, all right. So there we've set up our prices. We're about 47 minutes into the stream, so I think let's take a quick break here, and then we'll come back and do items. If you guys have any more questions, like I said, this is about a simple of an example as I can do for an include and using an array. So if you guys have any questions or anything, or any questions about what we've gone over, by all means put them in chat. But otherwise, I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes. Oh, I did it again. I'd been so good about it. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was chuckling about Skelly's comment about it, but and then I segued into a rant about how much I love Icewind Dale, and you know anybody who's followed me on the forums or heard me on Discord or anything else knows what a huge Icewind Dale fanboy I am and how much I love that game. And I was just about how I love the Icewind Dale items because you'll go to the smithy in Kuldahar and there'll be an item that's 45,000 gold, and you open it up and there's like 10 paragraphs of this epic backstory of this item, and you're like, oh, look at the story and this tale and its epic history. And then you get down to the details and it's like a +2 hammer, right? And it's one of those things that Icewind Dale does so well, and the item artwork is beautiful, and it's just like this level of detail. And then you'll get people talking like, well, there's no story in Icewind Dale. It's like, come on, guys. There's so much love and craft put into that game that it's just not appreciated. All right. The 10 paragraphs of story text for a +2 hammer. So, all right. So my Icewind Dale fanboying aside, I did not see any questions about using arrays and other stuff. So we're going to go ahead and make a quick commit and put all the prices. We need to add this file towards Skit, and we'll make a quick commit for this, and then we're going to go back to our items. All right. All right, guys, I hope we're back. My internet straight up died outright in the middle of all of that. So if you guys can hear me in the chat, by all means, let me know. So I'm going to give a couple minutes here to see if we're stable and broadcasting again before I start going on again. Yeah, my connection has not been the best today, but this is the first that it's just straight up died. Okay. Yeah, no, the problem was absolutely on my end. So I'm glad you closed the browser and reopened it, but my internet connection straight up died for like a minute. So I opened up the phone long enough to post a G3 that the internet died, and then as soon as I did, it popped back up. So this is I live in rural California, which means the internet that I have is not good. Like I'm basically on AT&T's Air plan, which is essentially I'm basically using AT&T's cell network, and believe it or not, that has been the best, most solid internet we've been able to get, because before this we were on like a 5 down, 1 up. So the fact that I can even stream video at all is way ahead of where we were. So what I was saying when I was about to be disconnected was, before I made that commit, I wanted to double check that the string we had inserted is working in Zalanor's script. It did. So now I'm going to go ahead and commit and push. So thank you for that. Let me get my chat updated. Okay. All right. So again, thanks for sticking with me for that. So everything we have is working. So, and we've gone through arrays. So with that in mind, I'm going to save upgradable items, I think, as our first hour topic tomorrow. because upgradable items will get us into dialogue editing and some other fun stuff with that. So let's use the remainder of the stream to try and catch up on our backlog of items. And let's see where we were. All right, so we did Lunar Shards. We did Neverlone and Tinker Spectacles, so we're on to... Now, see, this is the problem, is that I've seen all your guys' names written, but I don't know how to pronounce them. So, Diesel Ray, I suppose. That's what we got here. All right, so it's the belt of Urdunnir. It's a girdle. Oh, it's got different bonuses for dwarves versus everybody else. Oof, this is really frustrating. We're not even streaming at that high of a bit rate, and it's still crapping out like this again. So, all right. So we'll try this again. Hopefully it'll stabilize and be a little bit better. I don't know why today of all days it's decided to be really bad, but I suspect this is going to be one of the videos where I upload my local copy afterwards, because this has been bad. After I edit out the hello, is anybody here? So, all right, so we're going to make our G3C, and then what's the item name again? We'll just use Urd, G3C Urd. Oh, so it's going to be, all right, G3 Curd, dot item. Okay. All right, and it's going to be, all right, so we'll do the bonuses to everybody, and then we'll add the bonuses just for dwarves on top of that. So our bonuses for everybody gets 1 strength and 2 con, and then dwarves get +1 of those on top. So 1 strength, 2 con. All right, so we're going to change this. Let's find our strength opcode. There it is, strength bonus. To self, it's going to be a bonus of 1. It's going to increment it. So a lot of the bonuses like this, you have different ways to apply it. We can setting it would mean it would set their strength to 1, or you could set it to 1% of their current strength. Bull strength is a special Icewind Dale mode where it gives you a strength bonus in the same way that the bull strength spell does, which is like a weird implementation. So this is going to be a +1 increment. It's going to be 100%. There's no save. All right, and then let's duplicate that. Except turn it into a con bonus, which I think is... Start searching for C's. Cure Stun. Where is our con bonus? Cure Sleep. Charisma Con. There it is. Constitution bonus. It's going to implement by 2. All right. So now we're going to copy both of these, and we're going to paste both of them. And these are going to be the dwarf ones, except the dwarf only gets +1 and +1 beyond that. And so we're going to use the trick that we tried to do yesterday, which is we're going to add an effect, and we're basically going to do the immunity trick that we were doing yesterday, which is where is it? 324. And we're going to say if the race is not equal to dwarf, then you are now immune to this item. Let's see, is it registered here? All right, we want this to be 100%. Want it to be instant while equipped. So again, this is another situation where, like before, we're taking advantage of the fact that effects are applied in order. So if anybody puts on this belt, the game says, oh, we've got 5 equipping effects. Let's go through them. All right. So I'm going to give you +1 strength. I'm going to give you +2 constitution. All right. Oh, you're an elf. So you are now immune to effects from the Golden Girdle of Ernst. Therefore, I'm immune to this, and I'm immune to this. If I'm an elf or a human or, not a dwarf. That's what the exclamation point is, negation. So if the race does not equal dwarf, you are now immune to this item.
So if you are a dwarf, then it says, all right, this doesn't apply to you. So here's another +1 strength, and here's another +1 con. So so 324 is a enhanced edition opcode. So this is a nice, easy thing to do in the enhanced. I don't even know where that crapped out. So just in case, I'll reiterate. We're using the fact that effects apply in order. So basically, you'll get your strength, you'll get +1 strength, +2 con. If you're not a dwarf, then it will block further effects. So these two get blocked from anybody who's not a dwarf. So dwarves get the extra +1 strength and +1 con. That's it. And then we're just going to do the TP2 work. So let's just grab this, except this is the belt of Urdunnir. And this is going to be, I think, 21 and 22. This is G3 curd. All right, let's take this over to our game.tray. Yeah, 21 and 22. Oh, I didn't grab the name. And this is going to be 21. All right. Okay, so let's find something else that does equipping abilities that has one of there's an Icewind stone that does intelligence. We can use that as our basis. I think it's the gold. It is the gold. All right, so we'll do this. All right, so we've now had what, 3 disconnections in the last 15 minutes. I think this is nothing in the background is using bandwidth. This is everything that I've got right now. So it's been solid the last couple of days, and just for whatever reason today and right now it doesn't want to be. So and the weird thing is right now it's showing no dropped frames, but I do not trust that at all, being as it has been continuously disconnecting. So let's go ahead and see if we can wrap up this item. And I'll just say, if we drop again, I think that's going to be it for the day. That's if that's not a sign that it doesn't want to cooperate today, then I don't know what is. So I was going to take a quick look into SOD, because I know SOD has some, I think, like Bard specific items, and I want to see how they do the notation on those, because as I recall, there are some items that give specific bonuses to certain classes or kits, and I just want to see how those are expressed in the item descriptions. Okay, yeah, so something like this. This is exactly what I was looking for. This is exactly how I want to do the notation. All right, so let's come back here. All right, so that was easy to find. All right, so it's going to be strength +1 or +2 for dwarves, +1 for others. Or no, it's strength +1, or yeah, +2 for dwarves. And then constitution, it's going to be +3 for dwarves and +2 for others. There we go. Okay. And then the other thing, since we've externalized it, we also need to decide on on a price for this. So these are fairly massive bonuses. Like the 2 con by itself is a massive bonus, and then 3 on a dwarf, you're talking about somebody who can already start at 19 con if you have a PC who's a dwarf, right, you start at 19 con, you can come into BG2 at 20, and then, depending on what you do in Hell Trials and the Lum the Machine of the Mad, with this item, you could get up to 25 con. So this is a pretty powerful item. And then it's also got, 1 or 2 strength on top of that. Now, the drawback of that is the belt is a fairly contested area because there's 87 strength belts. All right. So on the one hand, you're trading off, you're having to trade off, 21 strength, 20 strength, 19 strength. We've got higher, don't we? Yeah. 22 strength for a +2 bonus, which, if you're talking about a dwarven fighter, you're probably at, again, with your BG bonuses, you're going to be up to probably 21 with that +2 bonus on there or more. So it's a really valuable belt. Now, is it something like a belt of inertial barrier or a girdle of frost strength? I'd say it's fairly comparable to these, right? Because this is probably, for most folks, this is, you're probably using this on your frontliner, which means this is probably like a 2 or 3 strength increase from what you are normally. You're not putting this on the mage in the back line, right? So for most people who want to use the fire giant belt, right, you're probably looking at, it's anywhere from 2 to 3. If you're using it on somebody with a 14 or 15 strength, then you're looking at like a +8 bonus. But then you're also getting the con on top of that. And there are outside of the Girdle of Fortitude, which does it once for 8 hours, I can't think of too many other items that raise con. So that's also really valuable because con means hit points, which means longevity. So I'm going to price this at a pretty good premium, right? So the Fire Giant belt is 15,000. The Inertial Barrier, which is also an awesome belt, is also at 12,500. I think putting this at something like 15 is entirely reasonable because this is a very, very buffed belt. So we'll put this at 15,000. And then, of course, because I'm making over 10 of it means I need to move all those over 1. And then let's grab the name. So this is an exceptionally powerful. I mean, this is like an end game belt. This is the type of belt that you're going to get and probably not swap it out for anything. So we're going to put a big premium on it. All right, so that is that belt. What have we got up next? All right. Any other notes? No, it doesn't look like it. All right, so that is. And then Skelly mentioned that you may also show it again how to make this item compatible with OBG2. The problem here is, and we ran into this, Love and I ran into this with the calling, and I know we've not been talking compatibility too much, but normally how you target things at, specific racers or classes in the original Baldur's Gate 2 is you use EFF files. So it's very easy to get an EFF file and say, hey, this is for dwarves only, apply this effect. The problem that we've run into is that if you try to use, so these items all use the timing, this item uses the timing mode instant while equipped. So, because I pulled it out of the, let's install it really quick. Oh, I've got an error at line 21. Oh, I think I left in the text. Save this. Yeah, I hadn't saved this yet. Everything else is saved. Yeah. Let me install this really quick so I can get it in the tree. I know we've got an error in. Oh, because I've got that spelled wrong. It's not curd, it's G3 curd. Did I do that on the items? No, I did not. Okay. All right. Slowly clearing up really dumb typos. Okay. Go to items. All right, so let me pull it up again really quick. So what Skelly is talking about is 324 is not an original Baldur's Gate 2 opcode. So how you normally target things at races or classes in the original BG2 is that you use an EFF file, and we've done that elsewhere. And the EFF, you can basically say, I want this effect to apply only to, like in this case, dwarves. And so you could externalize both these strength and constitution bonuses to EFF files and apply them that way. However, we ran into this problem. Lava and I ran into this problem doing items for the calling. These items, for stuff that you want to apply whenever the item is being worn, you use this timing mode. It's called instant while equipped. So basically this means whenever I have this item on, do this thing. EFFs do not work with this timing mode. So we can't run these through EFFs. So we're going to have to find a different way, if we can at all, to do these dwarf-specific bonuses on originals. And I suspect that our answer is probably going to be we can't do this. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to original Baldur's Gate 2. But, you know, we've come up with this before where, you know, original Baldur's Gate 2 has EFF files for doing this, and that's kind of your only tool. And in this case specifically, they don't work with instant while equipped, which is a problem. So I suspect this is going to be an EE only item, or it's going to be an EE only, or when this is for original Baldur's Gate 2, the dwarf specific bonuses are just going to be out, or we can make it a dwarf only item, right? There are different ways you can go with it, but I don't think we'll be able to do the variable bonuses depending on who's wearing it, at least not automatically. So, but we'll cover that in more details when we get to our compatibility stuff. So we've added this. Let's make a quick commit to the commit push. Boom, boom, boom. All right, that item is up. All right, let's see what is up next. That was the belt. The Peril-Sensitive Goggles by Jeremy. Oh, a fan of Zaphod Beeblebrox. Yeah, these are straight out of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah, hide in shadows, detect trap, blinds wearer when they see an enemy. All right, that one is going to be a little fun. All right, oh yeah, here's the Hitchhiker's Guide mention. All right, so blinds wearer when they see an enemy. That's going to be the fun part of this to implement. All right, so let's go ahead and start working on the rest of it, and then we'll circle back to that. So this is headgear. We'll grab Yan's goggles again as our starting point. The spectroscopes. Yep. Right, add copy. We're going to call this. And then the nice thing is, because the internal names are never exposed over, we're going to call this the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Is that too long? Oh, it is too long. All right, so we'll just call them Peril. Far less exciting. Peril-sensitive glasses. All right, so the easy stuff: hide in shadows, detect traps, locks, and shadows. All right, we don't need the magical ability. Or that, and that. All right, so we got traps 10. Right, yep. And then we want open locks, which is, there we go. We want 10 for that too. Traps, locks, and was it shadows, I think? Traps, locks, and yeah, hide in shadows. Remove that, remove that. Let's just duplicate this. Come on, there we go. Hide in shadows, there we go. Self, 10, increment, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right, so that's the easy part of it. Now, we might be able to, let's check the ISDP to see if there's anything that we can, oh, I didn't want to search for it, for crying out loud. So normally 232 is our conditional effect, but I don't think there's anything here you know, if we're hit, if we, oh, you know what? Maybe we can see. Oh, we can do a see evil cutoff. So this basically means if we see red circles, oh, we can do this really easily. You know, it's almost like J. Mary knows what he's doing and is setting this up to be easy for me. All right, so we're going to add an effect. This is going to be a 232. Cast spell on condition. We're going to do this to myself. And it's going to be a spell cast on myself. And it's going to be if I see evil cut off. And it's going to check this once per round. And this is going to be, we want this to be active while we're equipped. And a 100%. And we're going to call this, what do I call the item? Peril? Yeah, G. Okay. Into this string. So we're going to create a spell called G3C Peril. And no save. Bypass magic resistance. Right, save. Overwrite. Okay. And since we want blindness, the natural starting point should be the blindness spell. And we'll clone that. Grab the level 1 spell. And because it's going to check it for enemies per round, let's do a 1 round blind. So we're going to remove the name because I'm pretty sure the spell itself provides combat feedback that says blind. So, oh, have you guys lost sound? All right, let me know. As far as I know, sound is working on my end. If anybody else is having problems hearing me, like Zen Black, I suspect that might be on Zen Black's end. But if anybody else is having sound problems, let me know. As far as I can tell, I've got sound working. Okay, yeah, Skelly says there's sound. So Zen Black, I think you might have to reload the browser. Okay, good. Thank you, guys. We're gonna make this an innate. No exclusion flags. Casting animation doesn't matter because it's just going to be applied, but we'll remove it anyway. Same with these. Spell level 1. That doesn't matter. Okay. So blindness. So duration should be 6. And we also want to remove the save. Same this. Yeah, so it gives you a blinded string. Okay. Oh, and you know what? We also don't want like minor globe of vulnerability blocking it. So we also need to remove the power level. So remember, power level is what determines if, you know, I'm immune to X level spells. What it's actually checking is power. So we don't want, you know, if the person wearing these glasses has a minor globe up, we don't want minor globe to block this. All right, we want it to last for 6 seconds. No save. Actually, hold on. I think blind. No, okay, I was wrong. This is the, now this is an expiration sound. Now, because we're doing this as a 1 round ability, these glasses have the possibility, like if combat lasts for 5 rounds, this is going to be applied for 5 rounds consecutively. So because of that, I'm going to remove the expiration sound because you don't want, and actually I'm going to remove the initial sound too, because you don't want this sound going off every 6 seconds, which from a player's point of view, this is going to be a continuous blindness. So we're going to remove this. And actually, you know what? Now I think about it, I'm also going to remove the string. Actually, no, we're going to keep the string because having it say blind once per round, I think is entirely reasonable because it'll let you know it's going into effect. One thing I am going to change is I'm going to make this 7 so that if it does go per round, it'll be continuous. So we're going to make it bleed over just a tiny little bit into the next round so that there's no, like, the player, like, gets vision for, like, a split second and then it goes right back into effect. So we're going to extend it just a tiny bit past 1 round. This is the other thing. This is an animation that's going to play each time it goes into effect. We don't want this going off every round, so we're also going to remove the animation. We're also going to move creature RGB color fade. This basically means it makes like the character being affected like glow or flash or something. We also don't want that going off every round, so we're going to remove that. And it plays a sound. We also don't want the sound going off every round. So we're going to do blindness straight up for 7 seconds. Once around, it's going to display the string blinded, and then it's going to display the blind portrait icon for 7 items. So we've stripped this down to just what we want. So let's save this. And like I said, so the cast spell and condition, it checks that once per round. So let's say we're starting combat, and the combat's going to last, 5 rounds or whatever it is. So as soon as I see an enemy, as soon as the next round ticks, the glasses are going to say, okay, you need to be blinded now, and it's going to blind me. And then 6 seconds later, it should be checking again, but sometimes, the timing on the engine may not go correctly. It may check in 6.5 seconds maybe. And so if we set the duration of this blindness to 6 exactly, what can happen is then the player would get like a half second of where the blindness is interrupted, and they get like a half second of vision. And so the reason why I set it to 7 is to make sure that it overlaps just a tiny bit to account for the fact that maybe the round timings get out of sync with the actual blindness. Which reminds me, actually, I'm going to add one more thing that we're going to do here as the first effect. And I'll move this to the top in a moment. And this is nice because this is something we can do on EEs, because this is an EE specific. Or no, preset target. Okay. Is it permanent? We're basically going to have it clear out any existing effects that are there just in case. So this is going to be G3C Peril. All right. No save. And we're going to put this at the top of the stack. So let's cut those, put them in, insert them below. Okay. So 321 is a nice thing. When you have like an effect that you're going to apply, repeatedly and continuously, 321 is a great way to kind of keep things from accumulating. So you could just have it just pop once, clear out the old one, and then immediately apply the new one. So for blindness, it doesn't matter, because if blindness overlaps with blindness, you're just blind. This does matter if you have something like, if we were to include like, a -1 save penalty. If you had these in that 1 second overlap where you could have 2 applying at the same time, you could, those 2 penalties might stack. So even though it's not needed for this, because it's just a blindness effect and a portrait icon, this is still a good habit of getting into of essentially kind of doing this refresher in between. So that should be it for this. So let's go ahead and save, overwrite, and add. So that should be our Peril-Sensitive glasses. Let's go back to our override folder. Oh no. Did I? Oh, yep. Okay. All right, we did something dumb. I edited blindness directly. So one of the benefits of being on a clean install is that we can just rename this G3C Peril.spell, and blindness will be right back to where it is. Yes, and we should have now the spell. I should have made a copy before I started. All right, and that is with 321, yes, and then Spell Wizard 106 is back to what it should be. Yes, it is. Okay. All right, that's a bit of a mistake, but all right. So we've got our items, our item and our spell. The normal thing, we'll bring it back here, put the spell in the spell folder. Tortoise get add. Spell, tortoise get add. Boom. All right. And then our nice and simple TP2 work. Okay. All right, J and Mary. All right, grab this. G3 Peril.item. This is going to be 23 and 24. And we'll cut this to bring it over to here. And 1023 is the right, so goggles. keep doing that. This is at 1024. All right. And then let's add a weight 0 to this. Since, like I said, everything in the E's has a weight. It's obsessive about it. All right, and I know we've got, so I know we've got other places that have already done equipped abilities. We've got open locks is 10%. Hidden shadows is 10%. Actually, he's already formatted this correctly. It's J. Mary. I should have known he's done this work for me. And blinds wearer when it sees an enemy. All right, so I think that's everything we need for this. Next, we just need to set a price. And this is, now, unlike the belt of Urdunnir, this is obviously not an item that you're going to want to keep, because something that blinds you in the middle of a fight is not terribly useful. Now, having the thieving abilities are nice, but the blindness effect obviously makes this an item that, you know, it's going to be like after the battle when you need that extra little boost to unlock a chest or find a trap. That's when you're going to want to use this. So I'm not going to price this terribly high because it's a niche item at best. So let's just price it as 1,000. I don't want to price it like it's a cursed item, but it kind of is. So unlike cursed items, though, you can see a situation or two where you might use it. So it's but like I said, as somebody who loves Hitchhiker's Guide, this is an item near and dear to my heart. So yes, Iris, get out of here. All right, so that's the Peril-Sensitive glasses. Let's just grab this. Let's make our commit. All right. Added. Analyze spells, all that. Yep, commit and push. And good. You know, and I just want to say really quick as an aside, since the internet connection has come back this time, it has been rock solid and I've dropped like almost no frames. So knock on wood, I think we might be good. Of course, I mentioned that it may have doomed us all. So, all right, the Realm Shaper's Brush. Oh yeah, I remember seeing this from. So it's essentially a +4 halberd, and then it's gonna basically paint them a color. And then depending on what color they become, your effects are different. So this item is basically going to have 4 different possible sets of on-hit effects, depending on if the target has no color or if they're red, green, or blues. So this is definitely going to be an EE only item. And we're going to use something that is called, that we're going to use spell states for. Now, I'm trying to think. We have, what time is it? I was planning to go for about another 20 minutes. We're going to start with this item tomorrow because this is definitely going to take me more than 20 minutes to do. So that one, like Subtle Doctor's item, we're going to save this towards the end because we're going to need to use spell states for that. And spell states are immensely powerful and can let you do a lot of really, really cool stuff. The downside to spell states is that the game is limited to 255 of them. And I want to say like half of those are taken by just Baldur's Gate 2 by default. So they're also a little bit of a limited resource. But we'll come back to that because they do allow for some very, 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 very cool stuff. So we'll go on to our next item, which is the Executioner Putty. But yeah, I mean, we can definitely do this, but we're going to need to use spell states. And the Executioner Putty, it's a quick slot item. Freezing cold to the touch, resembles a hood. Executioner eyes once per day. Enhances the vision of allies. This is like an Icewind Dale 2 perk. See, the hidden weakness all creatures, it grants a +4 attack bonus, +4 bonus to critical hits. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it really extends the critical range. Within a 15 radius for 10 rounds. Oh yeah, spells take from Icewind Dale too. You know, if I would just read a little bit further, I would know these things.
for the Wander Skull. No, I have not. I'll take a look here in a second. Okay. All right, so basically a once per day Executioner Eyes spell ability for a quick slot item. All right, so I'm trying to think what is a good starting item for this? Something like a wand or a potion. Is there a potion that does area effect? I think maybe the potion of ice dust. I think that does an area of effect. Yeah, and this even has the nice radius that we can use. All right, so this is our good starting point. So we're going to call this G3C, and we're going to call it exec.item. Okay. So one thing that I've not talked about, because we've been copying items pretty much from what they are, is that the category of an item determines where it can be equipped. So for things that go in the quick slot, potions are one of them. The other one that can go in quick slots are miscellaneous. And if you come back, I want to just revisit really quick. Like, for example, these manuals that we've done for Glitter Gear, these are classed as miscellaneous, despite the fact that there is there's a book type item in here somewhere. There is a books category, but because books cannot be placed in the quick slot, like books are inventory items, despite the fact that these are very clearly books, you have to classify them as miscellaneous so that they can be put into the quick slot and used. So same for this. It's not a potion. It's more properly a miscellaneous. Okay. And let's check. Do we have any item restrictions? Any usability restrictions? No. Nope. It just casts a spell once per day. +4 attack bonus, +4 bonus to critical hits. All right, so I think we can do this directly in the item itself. So we're going to take a look at projectiles. Oh, this casts a spell. Okay, so we will do this externally. And we can copy spin 7-3. All right. The icon's going to need to... We're going to need a custom icon. Well, it'll be the item icon, what we use here. Right now it's using the... Yeah, it's using the little yellow potion. We'll leave that for now. Oh, let me open that back up. So we're going to change this to instead be edit as string. This is going to be G3C exec. And then we'll go make that spell off of spin 713. All right, save, overwrite, okay. Oh, and then is this... Yeah, 1 charge, but we want it to recharge after rest. So 1 charge. Yep, everything else looks fine. And yeah, centered on the caster, so we want it to cast on the spin. Okay. Save, overwrite, okay. Let's go find the spell. Spin 713. We're going to copy this. G3C exec. Okay. So we definitely don't... We're gonna need to name this spell. So we'll do that in a moment when we bring it over. Let me worry about that in all in a second. So anti-fireball. I think this might have a blue fireball visual, which we don't want. Yeah, I think so. All right, so yeah, I'm sorry. I should probably mention. So this is a projectile file. So this ability is an area of effect. So it uses what's called a projectile. Now, the game has a list of existing projectiles, and I think that we'll be able to find an existing one that we can use. This one uses the anti-fireball, which is safefire.pro. So this is our first look at a projectile file. Now, a projectile file is used by pretty much anything that, attacks from a distance, right? So arrows have a projectile file that is just an arrow. Same with throwing axes, throwing darts. They all use, slightly different ones so that they look different visually. For area project, so for like an arrow, it's just this,
right? And it basically says, use some sounds, use a graphic. And then if it's an area projectile, you'll also have this extra bit of information at the end. And this is what determines how big of an explosion and of an area effect does it have, what sort of animation should it use, what should it look like when it explodes, this is where you set those animations to how it all looks. And there's some other, and then use this as the rings, right? This is our standard. Yeah. Yeah, these are all of our animations. So for this, I'm trying to think of, I don't think there's any existing animation that I think would work for this. So this might be something where we have it go into effect, where the area of effect is invisible, and then maybe just play like a small little graphic over everybody affected to show that they've got executioner's eyes going. And we may want on the EEs, we can also do a portrait icon to go along to show that somebody's under its effects. So we might use something like a bless animation might be a better one. Yeah, we can use bless as a starting point. Let me take a look let me save this really quick. Save, override, okay. Well, actually, no, let's do the other effects first. We'll worry about the projectile in a moment. So it's going to give, a +4 to hit. Yes, that's right. Skelly is correct. For item types, yes, it also determines some other stuff too. All right, we want it to, and this is going to be a power 0. We want it to increase base to hit by 4. We want it to increment it, not set it. It's going to be, and I think he said for 10 for a turn, for 10 rounds. For 10 rounds, yeah. So for a duration of 60, no save. Always want it to go into effect. All right, the base, all right. That's easy enough. Let's remove this. Let's add an effect. And I think it's critical hit range is the name of the critical hit bonus. That might be it. Let me double check. Let's check the, like I said, the ISDP. What is 301? Critical hit modifier. Okay, we want to on a roll of 20 minus the statistics modifier. So we're okay, yeah. So we're expanding this by 4. So we want this to be 4. Yeah, okay. So yes, we want the 301. We want it to be on the preset target, so whoever this affects. We want it to be a value of 4, which is a massive expansion. And we want it to be always. We want it to be an instant limited ability. We want it to last 60 seconds. We want it to always go into effect. We want it to be for any attack type, because melee or ranged, we also want to give the bonuses to those. No save. All right. So let's go back to it. And we are going to save and overwrite. Okay. So really quick, I'm going to pull up the bless spell just to take a look at its projectile, because I think it's going to be a good starting point. Because if I'm right, it's also a 15-foot radius. Yeah. 15-foot radius is kind of your bog standard radius for spell effects, it seems like, in the game. And so this uses sparkle area purple party only. Nice and simple. So I think this is, show sparks, area of effect, 256. The radiuses are approximately, if you were to divide this, I think it's like the conversion factor is like 8.5 to get like the actual radius in game. And the difference between a trap size and explosion size. The trap size and explosion size matters for something like skull trap. So the explosion size is the actual area of effect. The trap size is for something like skull trap, how close you have to get before the projectile goes off. Now, for most, it doesn't matter. These are equal because, like, when a fireball hits, you just want it to go off. It's not going to hover. like delayed blast fireball, it matters. Glyph of warding, it matters. Skull trap, it matters. So any of those like lingering, kind of trap like spells, these will not match. But for something like this, yes, it matches. So yeah, I think so. This is exactly, I think, the projectile we want to use. So I'm just going to copy this, and we're going to come back to what is it? G3C exec. We're going to change the projectile to that. Okay. Now instead of lighting effects, we're going to play a graphic, which is I think 215 if I remember right. Yeah, play visual effect. Now, play visual effect is, whenever a spell hits you and then, some little graphic plays over your characters, that's all done with play visual effect. So again, we want the display on the preset target. And you can see you can over target, attached, and over target, unattached. So, or at target point. So if you were to think of like Flame Strike, for example, you can either have it. So imagine somebody, a target moving as the Flame Strike hits them. It can either, the Flame Strike could hit the target point and not move, right? That's this. Over the target unattached. So by the time the character's walking, if it's unattached, it'll hit where they're currently standing and then they'll walk away from it. And the Flame Strike will stay right where it is. Or if it's attached, the column of Flame Strike hits them and will move with them. It's attached to their creature. So for this, we're going to do attached just in case they're moving. We want the graphic to stay with them. We want to use instant permanent since it's only going to play once. Again, we want this to be 100. And we don't really have a good graphic for this. So for now, I'm just going to use, I'm just going to substitute in the bless with the expectation that I'm going to pop it out sometimes. Or swap it out, I mean. What does... All right, let me go back to the blast spell and see what it uses for visuals. Just to give us a starting point. Bless plays... Here it is, play visual effect. Oh, I see bless AI. Right, so this is the bless, right? Whenever you get blessed, right, you guys all recognize this, that it gets played over you. So for now, we're just going to use this. It's the VVC, and it plays over target attached, yeah. So let's copy this. All right, let's go back to our... And I know we keep short shifting like the graphics and the visuals, but it's just because doing those is going to be a whole thing on its own. So instant, we want to play permanent. Yep, all that is right. And we're going to save overwrite. Okay. And I think that should be it for this item. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, we can use a red bless effect. That'll be... Recoloring BAMs is a little more involved than you might think, but we'll get to it. So, all right, let's go back to our override folder and lowercase this. So, you'll notice I just lowercased the .spell. This is an old habit of mine. In the olden days, to get things to work for the Linux installer, it was because it was so case sensitive. By tradition, every file in your mod was shipped lowercase. That's not so much the case anymore, but I still do that anyway. I'm just a little anal retentive that way. So strictly speaking, it's not really necessary, but you'll notice I still do that out of habit. If it's just one file, I can do it that way. I do have... if you're on Windows, you can there's a power tool called, where is it? Power Renamer. Is it bulk rename? No, I think that's another program I have. No, yeah, that's definitely not it. Power Rename, there it is. And this lets you actually rename stuff, and even with regular expressions. So this is actually really, really nice and a handy thing to do. It's for free. It's on the Microsoft website. It's part of their Power Tools suite, and it's just called Power Rename. It's a nice little utility. I primarily use it to do to lowercase stuff, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's entirely up to you. Like I said, it's an old habit. In the olden days, you actually did need to lowercase everything for the Linux users. That's not really the case anymore. So that was just as an aside for those of you who noticed that I went through and lowercase that dot spell. So, all right, so that part is done. So now we need to do, again, the TP2 part of it. Let's grab the item name and all this other stuff. The Executioner Putty. That's a cool name. Okay. And this is Giovansky. Ooh, even a cool username. All right, Executioner Putty. I know what I call this. G3C exec. This is going to be 25 and 26. And then we also have a spell for this. And this is going to be our first spell that we actually need to provide names for. Now, spells have the same... spells have the exact same format in that they've got a name, they've got an identified name which isn't used because obviously you don't need to identify spells, and the same, they've got a spell description and an identified description. So we're going to give this, so just like, and this, because this is like a spell that you can actually use, it is going to show up in the combat log. So we do want to actually properly name it, because it'll show up that it's being applied to, all of your allies. So we do want to properly name it, and we want to name it after the ability. So we're going to call this Executioner. So we're going to need one more string. We're going to need at 1020, 1025. And then in this case, there's no way to actually access the description of what this does, but I do like to add descriptions for these, just because it helps if other people are trying to look at what the items are doing. So, oh shoot. I haven't even done the main item description yet. All right, sorry, this is going to be 27 and 28, because 25 and 26 are for the actual item itself. All right. So yes. Yeah, 25 and 26. And then this is going to be 27 and 28. And because these should be at 08 and 050, because these are targeting the general name and general description. So right on the item itself, we're looking for the identified name and the identified description. And on this, we're looking for just the spell description, which is at 50. And the spell name, which is at 8. So we have to change the offset slightly since we're targeting different fields. All right, so let's go ahead and drag this over. Save, bring it back to the game. All right, Executioner Putty is the name of the item. All right, copy this over into the description. And then we'll do a formal statistics section. Statistics, equipped ability, except this is going to be a charge ability. Let's grab a charge ability from somewhere else. Now, I did this in the wrong field. Okay, hold on. This should be in the item description, which is 26. All right, so when you're doing charge abilities, if it's an existing spell, you can kind of get away with this very short description, because for the most part, people kind of know what the spells do, and if not, they probably have a priest or a wizard where they can look up like what does knock do, or even just straight up in the manual, right? The manual's got all the spell descriptions. So in this case, though, it's doing a spell that doesn't exist anywhere. So we basically have to put the entirety of what this does
into the description. So, and we'll see if we can cut this down to something a little more compact. So executes and eyes once per day. Spell enhances the vision of allies. And so the nice thing is we already have a 10 round donation. And we can also add an area of effect. 15-foot radius. So we can delete this from this part at least. So we can do this. We'll do enhances. All right. And then we're going to use this exactly. Actually, no, we're going to go back to this as in the spell description. All right, now let's clean this all up. 25, 26, 27, 28. Everything's all wrapped in nice tildes. Okay. Let's see, exec. All right, now it's a once per day item, but this is a pretty powerful ability. You're talking a party buff that gives +4 to hit and quintuples the critical hit range, right? The normal critical hit is a 20, and this changes it to, which is a 1 in 20 chance to now a 1 in 4, 1 in 4 chance to land a critical hit, which is huge. So I'm going to put a pretty big premium on this item, I think, because again, this is something that would be massively useful for boss fights. Especially in TOB, right? You think of how many set piece battles you have against bosses. So this is going to be an item that's going to be useful really deep and late into the game. So I'm trying to think of something that's comparable in terms of this, in terms of like a once per day item that you can pop for boss fights that's kind of useful throughout the game, right? And so I'm trying to think like there are a couple items that summon, right? There's Kithix that gets summoned. Book of Infinite Smells. Yeah, no, that is really comparable. Like the Afridi bottle is 60. The Golden Lion, the Black Spider is 2,000. The Jade Hound is 2,000. It's more useful than all of those by far. Kind of all these 1 times a day items are all just a couple of thousand, but this is way more useful. Bowl of water elemental control. Oh, that's a BG item. That's why. I'm going to drop this at something like, let's say, I want to do a multi-thousand. So let's say 9,000, and then we'll adjust it from there. Because again, this seems like an incredibly, incredibly useful item. If anything, I think I might be lowballing it at 9. Because yeah, the expansion of the critical hit range by itself is gigantic, right? The +4 to hit, right? That's really beneficial for your frontliners. But the expansion of the critical hit range and doing the double damage. And, and I know full well that most creatures have critical hit protection. That's still pretty massive. Right? Critical hits going from 5% to 25% is massive. So, all right. So we're going to set that at 9,000. And then we're going to go ahead and, did I already add yep, item and spell. All right, let's do a quick install check, make sure we've got everything working. Nope. G3 Peril. I can't find G3 Peril. Did I name this something different? G3C Peril. Yep, I did. G3, yep, C Peril. Which means if they're wrong here, they're probably wrong on prices. Yep, they are. All right, let's try that again. All right, good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and make this commit. We've added, let me grab the name, the executioner putty. All right, we're just gonna make our quick commit. Boom, added that. Commit, push. And then it's 11:05, so I think let's go ahead and call it here. Well, actually, really quick, let's see what our next item is. Because that one was nice and easy. See, sure, Minstrel's Defense. Quite challenging to get to work. See here if you need. Okay. And then that's a double item. All right, so I think we are gonna call it here because it seems like what's coming up is either complicated or multi-item. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. I'm gonna do our normal versioning here at the end of the stream. Update the nightly to be 10:23. And this is now 10:23. Oh, good question, Wandering Scholar. Let me get to that really quick. So Wandering Scholar, going back to our array discussion from earlier, you can, oh my goodness, can you abuse arrays to do amazing things? So let me save this really quick. 10:23, 24 versioning. Commit and push. Boom, boom, boom. Let's make our packages. Okay. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the absolute limit of this abuse that you can do. Because Tweaks does some really, really goofy stuff with this. Let me finish the putting up the package really quick. Yeah, G3. Yeah, arrays, you can do some really, really fun stuff with them. We're creating a new release. This is going to be nightly 10:23, 24. It's going to be. Oh, did it not? Yeah, create a new tag. There we go. Nightly 10:23, 24. Set as a pre-release. Let me grab my packages. Boom, boom, boom. Says a pre-release, publish release. Boom, and done. Okay. So let me find a good example because, like I said, Tweaks Anthology does a lot of fun stuff with arrays. So, for example, Tweaks Anthology has components a lot of components that do fun stuff with armor, right? There's the allow mages to cast an armor with penalties. There's also the one that does thieving bonuses. And so I keep track of that with a giant armor array where I keep all the properties and all the penalties I have in armor. So this is a little bit horrifying. Oh, I need to turn off word wrap. No word wrap. So this is my armor array. This is my Karma armor list. And so you can put multiple keys on the left if they're comma separated. The key thing, though, is still these need to be unique, right? Now, because I've got item names over here, the odds of these not being unique, like the whole key has to be unique, right? Like I could duplicate this line. If I change this 400 to 401, it would be unique. But yes, so the same idea, though, is that all these keys need to be unique. And then again, they're pointed to. In this case, I just point them back to their item just because that makes it easier. So let me pull you up how you'd use these. Let's see. What is a component that uses these? Let me find thieving. Thieving and heavy armor, it's component 2100. All right, so skip all that stuff. All right, so here we do the action PHP each. We've included that file to load up this array, and then we're doing it as params to item. So everything that's here in this array definition, all of this gets loaded as params. Now, you can access these individually by, so whatever variable name you choose to use this becomes, in this case, I'm using params. So this becomes params underscore 0, params underscore 1, params underscore 2, params underscore 3, 4, 5, as many as you have. So you can see, like, if I'm using stealth, then I'm setting 8 to 255. And then here I can be like, all right, if these parameters are not 255, then we're going to do something to the item. But that's how you access these individual values on the left side. It's a little bit of an abuse, but this is how you do it. Because again, you can only, this is an associative array, right? You're associating A with B, you're associating C with D, and you're associating E with F, right? Or, or A to B, C to B, E to B, F to G, however you're associating. But it's basically, you're supposed to do a one-to-one association, but this is how you can abuse it to load up multiple information. The other way you could do this is you could also do, I know David in Sword Coast Stratagems loves basically making like internal 2DA tables, and then he will process like a 2DA table out of his mod and just, use Waidu's 2DA functions to, load information out of the table. And that's how I used to do it. I found that using an array like this, and this is anecdotal, right? I've not run any hardcore testing on this, but I used to have this information on a big 2DA table and did it that way. I found that the array at least feels like it's faster, because Waidu just loads this up and then it just has a bunch of internal variables. Whereas 2DA functions, there's a little bit more of an overhead, because at least in the olden days, whenever you were doing 2DA function, it basically was doing file operations. So it was like loading it was like you load the file, you do something, and then it would close the file, and then you'd look up something else. And so it was constantly loading and unloading a file, and it was slow. That's not been the case so much since the Big and Wisp have taken over, so that might just be an old prejudice of mine, but I found like the arrays are a lot faster. And for me, I also find this just a lot easier to work with. The downside is that if you're pulling information from array, you can name these variables a lot more sensible. Like, I can't just look at this and tell you what param 7 is, right? I have to be like, okay, param 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it's my penalty for move, right? So it doesn't make for as much user-friendly code, but it's faster and it will definitely get the jobs done. But yes, that is how you can use arrays to use, to have a lot more than just one-to-one associations. So yeah, I wish we would have tucked back that. Is there a maximum of 2 days to install, right? I actually don't know. I actually do not know if there actually is a maximum number or not. I actually don't know. This is, so like I said, because mods have added so many crazy different armors, this is why I basically have to manually keep track of everything. I mean, this is 1,400 armors, and I probably haven't updated this in 3 years. And the reason why I have to do this, where everything is defined individually, is because there are people that are like, yeah, it's a full plate, you can cast in it. And it's like, what? Because people will make mods that everything. It's like, oh yeah, it's elven chainmail, but I don't want thieving penalties. Or, it's scale mail, there are thieving penalties, but you can cast. Or it has an existing cast penalty that they think is, and if it has an existing penalty, I'll leave it. But this is why. And then the other reason why is, in Baldur's Gate 2, all the shields are one item type. Like, Icewind Dale breaks it out. Like, you can go to the item type and be like, oh, it's a tower shield, it's a buckler, it's a small shield. And the thing is, it's not always clearly well defined if something is a small shield or a medium shield. Or the larger problem is, like in BG2, pretty much everything is all the large shields are pretty much tower shields, because they have all the properties of a tower shield. By classical P&P definition, there are, like, pretty much any shield that I ran to in the game, I'm like, that's a tower shield. It's not a large shield. because of the missile bonuses you get with the large shields in the game. So there's not a clear delineation of what is a different shield. So that's one of the reasons why I had to do this horrific array that is just a pain in the butt. And there's also a lot of duplication. Like all this stuff with underscores, these are just 2-2 versions of items. So this is basic chainmail just in 2-2, right? This is chain 02, I think is chainmail +1. Actually, it might be splint mail. I don't know. So yeah, all these underscore items are just basic. These are just basic Baldur Gate items that 2-2 just changes the name of. So, but yeah, but to get back to the question, yes, this is how you do multivariable arrays. You just use the comma to delineate. And then when you call them into code, whatever you use here, you just have to add the underscore and then whatever number you're looking for. So I think with that, we've done our final commits. We've uploaded the nightly for today. And I'm irritated because despite the fact that we had 3 hiccups in the middle, of course, now the internet is working perfectly, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So if you guys have any questions, by all means, drop them into the live stream thread or into the comments underward, or in the comments under the video afterwards, and I'll do my best to address them at the beginning of the next one. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and call it for the day, and we will see you tomorrow at the same time. Again, 9 a.m. California, so whatever time you're watching in your own time zone. And thank you all for joining, and we will hopefully see you again tomorrow. Bye, guys.